Welcome to Country Living with the Wades. I'm Philip, and this is my little Catawba tree. I planted this little Catawba tree not because it's going to be big and beautiful in the spring and make all these beautiful sweet smelling flowers in the springtime, even though it will, but the reason I planted it is because Catawba tree attracts the Catawba moth. The Catawba moth lays the eggs on the back of the leaves, sometimes 100 to 1,000 at a time, and the Catawba worms eat the leaves only on the Catawba tree. And then when they get full grown, which takes about a month from when the eggs are laid until the worms are at full size, which is close to about almost 2 inches, the worms will fall off onto the ground. They'll find a place, they'll dig a hole, go in about 3 inches, and they'll go into a pupa state, and then they'll stay there. Now down here in the south, they say that we'll get 2 seasons. If we get the worms in the spring, then they'll come out of the pupa state and do a second series of caterpillars. But if you live more north and you have Catawba worms, then you might only have just 1 season of the Catawba worms. Now, what's so good about the Catawba worms? They are one of the best fish baits for lakes. That means all your panfish, your bream, your perch, your bluegill, your bass, whether they're largemouth or smallmouth, but especially for catfish. They are a fantastic bait. Now, you only have them for a little bit during the summertime, but there's a trick to it. If you have enough worms left, you can actually boil the worms for about a minute, make them good and stiff, pull them out, dry them off, put them into a freezer bag with a little bit of cornmeal, and you can use them year-round. So with this little tree of mine, I plan to catch a lot of nice fish. Here's one more thing about this little Catawba tree. If I'm not attracting the Catawba moth right off the bat, what I can do is I can go to a tree that already has a lot of caterpillars on it, go get a bunch of caterpillars off of that one, put on my tree, and then when they fall off, they'll go to the ground, and that should start the series of Catawba worms. Anyway, take care. God bless you. This is what I'm planting today. This is a Catalpa tree. It's only about, I don't know, not quite 1.5 feet tall, and it was fairly expensive. I could have bought seeds, but if you plant the seeds, this is about 2 years worth of growth right here after the seeds have been planted, and I'd like to have my fishing worms about 2 years earlier. So X marks the spot. It will be planted right here. Let's see if I've got everything I need. First, the Catalpa tree, that's where it's going. Water to make sure it starts off good. Post hole diggers, because for planting trees and things like that, the post hole diggers work best. A pair of gloves, a couple of stakes to make sure I mark it off so I don't run over it with a mower, and a hammer to drive the stakes in. This is actually a pretty good spot for the tree to be planted. Right now you can see I'm in the shade. It's about an hour and a half after daylight. When it gets about 2.5, 3 hours after daylight, this becomes full sun, because this is east and this is west. So as the sun comes up, this will stay full sunlight for the majority of the day. Now, I know the tree looks kind of small and puny, and it is, but it will grow. These are very fast growing trees. All right, you can see the hole is by far much bigger. That's how deep the hole is. But I think I want to make the hole bigger around a little bit so I have a bigger bowl for adding water. And this is Pea Turkey. He says, I want to help, but he really never does. Let me make it a little bit bigger. You can see when I made it bigger, I didn't go the full depth, but I've got a lot of broken up dirt in here. We'll break it up a little bit more, and I'm going to saturate this with water. Bring it up to a little bit better depth. So about half the water in there now. I'm going to let that soak in. While I was letting this soak in, I went back to the shed and I got a shovel. I notice I got a flat shovel instead of a spade because I want to be able to scrape up all the dirt left over. And it's a lot easier with a flat shovel. It's good for digging things up off a flat surface. Now I'm going to put this soft dirt back in. Planting instructions for this say I should not plant it where it's any deeper than what this is in the ground. But what I'm doing is I'm recessing this area so I have sort of a bowl. When I do water, I can fill this bowl up with water and let it soak in. So let me pull this out. This looks like it's got a pretty good bundle in there, but the root and all is not thick enough to need to cut it. So I'm just going to go ahead and make my spot right here. That should be pretty good. Some of this dirt back in next to it. Hold it in place real well. I'm going to loosely pack it. Not going to pack it real hard. Now I still have a couple of gallons of water left in here. So I want to pour it in here. I can fill this up a little bit. I'm sure, since I'm not using a microphone, I'm sure you hear all the cicadas singing and making their noise like 1,000 grasshoppers. Kind of sounds like if you have tinnitus, only a little bit lower frequency. And there, finished.